Can't be that hard. I think we could do that. Oh, shit. That was fabulous. Editor, maybe we could, yeah. Van Halen. Welcome to Amity Tracks. Let's talk some Van Halen. You know, Van Halen was so much fun, first of all. I mean, the party songs, the just kind of screamed Southern California summertime, loved great hooks, awesome melodies, the soaring choruses, the great backing vocals from Michael Anthony. I mean, they could get these songs on the radio. There was so much of that I think that obscured just somewhat the musical genius of Eddie Van Halen. He really was, one of those, I think, natural geniuses, savants, rare, very rare. And one of those rare guitar players who comes along who really does sort of change the whole landscape of guitar playing, which I think he did. I really think he did. I know it's not cool to cite Rolling Stone for anything, but I think the most recent, where they do the top 100 guitar players and all that. I thought it was interesting, and I think the most recent one of those, that in the top 10, Eddie Van Halen was in there. I forget which position he was, but he was in there in the top 10. He was the only one who didn't get his start, like in the 60s or before. It's the only kind of pioneering guitar player in the top 10 that was a whole generation later. It's kind of interesting how hard it was to really innovate, further down the line, right? And again, I think his love of a great pop song, of kind of the band concept, sort of party fun atmosphere, obscured just how innovative and great he was. You want to talk about that natural genius? I always think of his solo on "Beat It," Michael Jackson's "Beat It," right? And the story goes, well, first of all, he didn't get paid for that, which was interesting. He did it for free, and I think he did 2 takes. They used one of his 2 takes, and he was done. I mean, just unbelievable, unbelievable. And I've always said I think it was a lost opportunity that we didn't get that solo instrumental album from Eddie Van Halen. I think a lot of fans were always sort of waiting for him to do that, to maybe step away from the band and put out, not get so confined, by the verse, chorus, kind of the song structures, and having vocalists, and just really kind of letting his genius flow, on some instrumental pieces, which he did occasionally on Van Halen albums, but like a whole album of that. I think a lot of people were waiting for that, and obviously we never got it. But there's more to Van Halen than Eddie, right? Brother Alex Van Halen, fine drummer. I mean, not one of my favorites, but I think perfect for that band. I think the secret weapon was Michael Anthony on bass, but especially those backing vocals. I mean, those soaring choruses. That's Michael Anthony, man, with those harmony vocals. So essential. And then, of course, the big question: David Lee Roth, Sammy Hagar, or I guess Gary Cherone, but nah. Sammy or Dave? Well, here's where I fall on that. I think Sammy. I prefer Sammy as a human being. Who would want to hang out with, have a beer with, have a conversation with? Sammy. For Van Halen, though, David Lee Roth, at least in his prime. Now, I'm gonna say, if you've seen some videos of him in recent years singing, he's lost quite a bit. But yeah, but in his prime, I mean, David Lee Roth always had that reputation of not being a great singer. I thought he was a fine singer, in his prime. I mean, one of the greatest, no, but for Van Halen, yes, and what a showman. I mean, a genius showman. um, so yeah, you put all that stuff together, it's a pretty potent thing. So all right, let's get to it. I'm gonna rank Van Halen's 12 studio albums from my opinion. This is all just opinion, but worst to best, at least favorite to favorite, and hopefully say a few interesting things along the way and see if you guys agree or not. Well, I'd like to be kind of cool and not start at the bottom with the one that is always at the bottom. I mean, I've watched different Van Halen ranking videos. This is always at the bottom, but for good reason, and I'm gonna go with it too. Now, these I think these bottom five I've got on CD, but we'll get to the vinyl here. But Van Halen 3, obviously, the one outing with Gary Cherone of extreme fame. Now, I think first and foremost, this mostly is not Gary's fault. Um, Maybe a little bit. I mean, it sounds like he's kind of trying to be Sammy, basically. But I mean, just the songs aren't there. I mean, all the stuff that Van Halen was so great at. The catchy hooks and the chorus. I don't know. It's just there's nothing here really stands out at all. At least for a good in a good way. And all just kind of looking at I mean, all these songs are 5-6 minutes. I mean, they just go on too long without really going a lot of places. So yeah, this this was sort of DOA, I think. All right, number 11. Number 11, I am going with OU812 from the Sammy era. All right, which was, what was it, 88? Yeah, 1988. Their second outing with Sammy. Yeah, this one, it's kind of funny with the title, like OU812. I, I was reading that was directed at David Lee Roth. A childish jab, but whatever. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's some good stuff on here. I really like Finish What You Started. I know there's a lot, for whatever reason, there's a lot of Van Halen fans don't really dig that. I kind of like it whenever especially Eddie Van Halen in his playing, kind of steps out of the standard Van Halen sound, and how he kind of had that real clean guitar sound on that, and sort of almost like country flourishes, kind of like at least sort of chicken picking and sort of blending it in sort of a hard sort of fusion almost with some hard rock you know elements. I think that's cool. I actually don't even mind Feels So Good and When It's Love, the kind of the synthesizer pop singles. I don't mind those. Honestly, to me, it's kind of the rest of the stuff on here that's just sort of filler to me and kind of blends together and forgettable. All right, got to put some David Lee Roth here, at least near the bottom. So I am going with their final release, A Different Kind of Truth, their reunion album with Roth. What was that? 2012 when that came out. Now this is not bad. I mean, we're at least getting into the territory where at least pretty good stuff. Now, of course, this is also one where Michael Anthony was out by this time. There's different reasons given for that. Um, Supposedly, the Van Halen brothers were a little irritated that Michael Anthony had been so loyal with Sammy Hagar. And Sammy was on the outs. I don't know why. It's still unclear. It's quite a soap opera, But man, they do miss Michael Anthony's harmony vocals on here big time. Eddie Van Halen's son, Wolfgang Van Halen, of course, takes over the bass duties and does fine. But I don't know. Kind of miss the original lineup there. They did a smart thing on here. A lot of these songs actually date way back. I mean, to the beginning in the late '70s. Some of them kind of unfinished, that they didn't put on those original albums, and they kind of finished them up here. I think that was a smart move. Um, Very little synthesizer on here. They kind of go back to heavy guitar sound. Now, yeah, I was that opening song. I guess it was a single, "Tattoo." I never liked that, but there's some good stuff on there. I think "Blood and Fire" is cool. I enjoy "Stay Frosty." It's a great kind of David Lee Roth, fun tune there. I mean, overall, it's this is I think a decent closer. You know, to cap on the career. It's nice that they kind of reunited with Roth. Although, again, I don't approve of Michael Anthony not being there. All right, coming in at, let's see, where are we at? I guess number 9. Yeah, I'm going with for unlawful carnal knowledge. Okay, which was actually a big hit in 1991. My beef with this one is there is kind of a sameness. A lot of these songs, I think, flow together a little too much. I really like it when they do kind of step out with some different sounds. The massive hit, of course, was "Right Now," which I love. I mean, I think it shows Eddie's genius on the keyboard. 316, I think, is real nice. That's a beautiful solo acoustic number. I wish he would pick up the acoustic more than he did. And some of these songs are fun. I mean, "Pound Cake." Let's see, "Dream is Over," "Top of the World." What's the other one? Anyway, like I said, they all kind of run together, to me at least. But all right, the final one I have on CD before we get to the vinyl. This one was kind of a sleeper. This one, I'm talking about "Balance" here, from, was it 95? Yeah, from 95. Now this one, when this came out, I kind of stopped buying Van Halen stuff, so I didn't buy this when it came out. I only picked it up a lot later just to sort of complete the Van Halen collection. And listening to it recently, um, really for this video, really kind of rediscovered this. I mean, there's kind of some heavier stuff on here, some darker stuff. "Seventh Seal" is kind of a cool opener. "Can't Stop Loving You" that's a great radio hit, I think. "Don't Tell Me" is good. I mean, this is a sleeper. I mean, some great playing from Eddie, as you would hope, and you know, I think it just kind of came out at the wrong time. In '95, it just wasn't the environment for a big Van Halen album. But listen to this in retrospect, and it's kind of fun. All right, so moving on to the vinyl here. And we are getting into the classic Roth era. Now, I know there is one more Sammy left. Where is it? It's not here, though, because at number 7, I do have "Diver Down." Was that 82? Yeah, from 82. In some respects, I mean, this this is kind of a toss off. I mean, it's fun. In some way, it wasn't actually intended originally to be a full album. They had recorded that cover of "Oh Pretty Woman," which is on here, and that sort of became an unexpected hit on the radio. And Eddie had also, I believe, they had already recorded the "Dancing in the Street" with the kind of cool guitar intro effects. And so Warner Brothers was kind of pushing them, to get another record out, to capitalize on "Pretty Woman." And so this was sort of tossed together, and it sounds tossed together, but in some ways maybe that's its charm. I don't know. Got a little too many, or a few too many covers on here, kind of showing that they were a little short on material. I mean, Eddie Van Halen especially didn't really want to record this record. He wanted to take some time to write some more material, but they were kind of pushed into this. That being said, there's some good stuff on here. I think "Secrets" is great. And again, a little bit different. That cleaner guitar sound. It's just a solid pop song. really solid pop song that, I mean, I think they could have gone in that direction a little more sometimes. Um, Cathedral is really cool. That's, the requisite Eddie Van Halen instrumental, kind of using a lot of effects on that. That's really cool. I mean, Intruder, that instrumental intro that bleeds into Pretty Woman, that is awesome. It really is. But a lot of this other stuff, it's fairly minor, I think. Where Have All the Good Times Gone? Another Kinks cover that doesn't quite pack the punch as their first big Kinks cover, which you all know what that is. It's coming up here soon. But at number 6, this is the highest I could put a Sammy record. 5150. The debut with Sammy Hagar, Van Hagar, whatever you want to call it. 1986. This was a huge hit. Um, and it was bold, right? I mean, when David Lee Roth took off, with dreams of a huge solo career and a film career, none of which really came to fruition as he hoped would. I mean, there were real questions. How can you replace David Lee Roth? I think it was smart that they went with someone like Sammy, kind of a veteran who was already somewhat established, very different from Roth, so they're not just trying to replicate Roth. I think Sammy Hagar is probably a better technical singer too than Roth, although Roth has so much character, at least in that original run. It's to me, you can't beat that. But this has some good stuff on it, and I actually really like the big radio hits on this. I mean, Why Can't This Be Love? Dreams, Love Walks In. I think all three of those are killer, radio songs. 5150 is a good song. I like Summer Nights. So I think half of this is super strong. And and then as in my view with pretty much every Sammy record, there's a bit of filler too. Check out the mid '80s haircuts though. It's pretty awesome. All right, from here on out, these top 5 are just, I mean, just killer. So at 5, I do have 1981's Fair Warning, which is a really interesting listen, especially if you kind of want to get away from the familiar radio hits. I think Unchained is the best known song on here, and that wasn't a huge hit even. Although, God, that killer, just a massive guitar tone opening that song up. Mean Streets has such an amazing guitar intro too. I mean, again, just showing the genius of Eddie Van Halen. A lot of these other songs here, though, you really don't hear like ever, but it really plays well. It's a little darker record, and Eddie's. You can tell he is wanting to experiment some more with the synthesizers. Sunday Afternoon in the Park. I think that's the one. It's just kind of a synth experiment, basically. But yeah, kind of a darker, like probably I don't know, in some way their heaviest album, at least in the Roth era. Great stuff. Great stuff. Number 4, I'm going with number 3, their third record, Women and Children First. Now, on this one, I think they kind of have one foot, still in that sound of those first 2 albums. But they are starting to, I think, move forward a bit. You look at a song in A Simple Rhyme, Could This Be Magic? Some of those type of songs. Little more pop elements in there, kind of some of those kind of more melodic, kind of catchier choruses. But still some heavy, heavy stuff, and The Cradle Will Rock is awesome, which, what's kind of cool on that one, sounds like you think it's a guitar, but it's, from what I understand, that real kind of heavy intro on that is actually a synthesizer. I think probably the first instance of him experimenting with some of that. Everybody Wants Some is a lot of fun. Yeah, this is another. I don't know. I mean, a lot of obviously Van Halen fans know this, but people who aren't deep into Van Halen might not be as familiar with this one. But this is solid and strong, really strong. And again, I think kind of this bridge of where they're kind of going from that early sound on those first two records into, into some more pop elements, okay, or radio friendly elements, maybe you want to call it. All right, these top three records to me are 5-star records. Kind of perfect in each in their own way. Number three, I'd love to put this higher, but I just can't because of what's 1 and 2. But I'm really, really fond of this one, and it's the second one, Van Halen 2. And I guess one of the common thoughts on this is it does sort of try and repeat the template a little bit of the stunning debut, but I think it does move ahead a little bit too. Now, I've seen a lot of video, or not a lot, but some videos where people like don't really like that cover of "You're No Good." I love it. I think it's fantastic. That heavy guitar sound is so cool. One, I just think it's a great song. I mean, I love the Linda Ronstadt version of it, right? I just think it's a great song. I think it's cool, and they really take that and do something with it. Kind of like they do with "You Really Got Me," right? Um, "Dance the Night Away" to me is the leap forward from the debut. That is sort of a catchier, hookier, sort of radio friendlier song than anything on the debut, and it kind of shows that they can go in that direction. It's a great song too. Um, yeah, "Spanish Fly" is sort of an eruption for the acoustic guitar, pretty astounding. "DOA" is great. That's a great deep cut. God, what a great riff. Whole thing though, man, is fun. And what's cool about these early albums, and this one and the debut especially, is they're short. Like the running time, it doesn't overstay their welcome. Like the CD era, when you have more space, you don't have to fill it, right? And these things, man, just come out punchy and they're done, and like leave you wanting more, instead of like, ugh. I mean, compare this to some of those '90s albums. The songs kind of stretch and stretch, and yet they don't need to sometimes, right? So this is pretty awesome. All right, but the top two are the top two, right? So the one I have at number two, if I were trying to talk about the most significant records, trying to make some sort of objective list, I mean, this would be the top one. But this is a personal list, right? So I do have this at number two because I just love the other one more. But if you want to sit there and argue that this is number one, I mean, yeah, I cannot refute that at all, because this is one of the greatest debut albums in rock and roll history. I put it up there. I'm talking about Van Halen, of course. There's a great shot of Dave there on the back. I put this up there with Jimi Hendrix's debut, with the Doors' debut. I mean, that revolutionary. I mean, this just changed so much, especially in kind of hard rock and heavy metal. I mean, this was a like a wake up call to everything. God, it was so great. Now, one complaint I do have is they should not have opened with "Running with the Devil." It's a fine song. Put it somewhere else, somewhere in the mix. But you open with "Eruption," just like this announcement to the world. Just, I mean, you should open with "Eruption." Kind of fun story on "Eruption." I was reading about that when they recorded that. I mean, it wasn't intended to be on the record. Eddie was sitting in the studio, basically doing warm-ups, like warm-up exercises. And "Eruption" was basically his, his little warm-up exercise. And whoever the engineer was in that day was smart enough to like, wow, and recorded it, and then they, kind of added a few things, here and there to make it a track. And and the funny thing is Eddie Van Halen was never satisfied with "Eruption" on here. He always says, "Yeah, I could do that better." It's like, and they were just like, "No, no, no, this is magic. This is magic. But man, it's just that is a revolution in one song, isn't it? But Ain't Talking About Love is just classic hard rock. I mean, Atomic Punk is awesome. Jamie's Crying, of course. That awesome, fun cover, Kinks cover, If You Really Got Me. Even Ice Cream Man. Ice Cream Man's fun. I mean, just this whole thing, start to finish. I mean, it is a perfect record. I mean, it really is. And a revolutionary one, too. But you're going to ask me my favorite Van Halen record? It's going to be 1984. I mean, huge, massive. David Lee Roth's final one until the one reunion way later. But man, I mean, to me, this is just, maybe it's my age, kind of when I was growing up, when I was coming of age. I mean, this was 80s summer fun, man. Just a huge, and I'm fine if I never hear Jump again in the rest of my life. But the other overplayed song, Panama, I could listen to that 10,000 more times. I still love that song. It's just so much fun. So great. But all the deep cuts on here are great too. I mean, Drop Dead Legs, Top Jimmy, I'll Wait, which is a really underrated uh, kind of synth song. It's really good, really good. Or use of synths, but still kind of a heavy song. Hot for Teacher, of course, is a blast. Legendary video on MTV. Yeah, I mean, this was just, they're on top of the world when this came out. Oh, and I remember I used to think that cover was so scandalous. But and then when David Lee Roth, takes off, that's sort of the peak of their fame. That was a shocker. I remember that. It was tough shoes for Sammy Hagar to come in and film. I got to admit that. Well, all right, guys. So that's it. That's my countdown. It's my top 10 of Van Halen. Real quick, if you want to stick around for a minute or two, we can discuss comps and live albums. I've got the two major compilations on CD. I didn't even pull them off the shelf. I mean, editor can put them up here, but was it the Best of Volume 1, which they never added a Volume 2, which is all right, but it's just not it's not enough stuff to really be kind of a definitive compilation. Now the other one, drawing a total blank on the name of that. Editor can put it up. The double disc one. Best of Both Worlds. That's right. That's what it's called. Best of Both Worlds. Total missed opportunity. I mean, I think it's obvious you should make one disc of the Roth era and one disc of the Hagar era. Both eras can stand on their own with the best of those eras. I don't know why it's almost like they just took these songs and threw them in the air and just picked up from random and put them in a random order, right? And going back and forth between the eras, and it's just no flow to it at all. I mean, that could have been such like a definitive hits collection, but it totally dropped the ball on that. Was it Right Here, Right Now, the double live album they put out? I think it was, I don't even remember what year. I have that too. I don't listen. I hardly ever pull that out. I mean, it's fine, but it's just kind of drags. It's the wrong time. I don't know. We should have put out some prime Roth era. I think that's sort of the Hagar stuff. And I know they did actually put out one more live record with this reunion lineup, which I've listened to once or twice, but yeah, there it is. That one I don't have, but I've listened to it a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, the comps kind of missed the mark, and at least the two official live albums kind of missed the mark. But those the best studio albums of Van Halen are just essential rock and roll. Period. I mean, one of the great American rock bands. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that journey through Van Halen, and please do subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it. Like the videos if you do. And you can hit the bell for notifications, and we'll see you guys next time.